Hi, I'm Tristan, and this is Thinking About Politics. So today, I'm reading a report issued by the Arizona Secretary of State regarding the 2020 general election review of ballots. Now, as some folks have probably heard, there's a lot of fake claims about fraud going around regarding the 2020 presidential election in Arizona and other states that Donald Trump lost as well. The reason these lies have come up is because Donald Trump lost and he's lying about losing. However, in order to justify these claims, a lot of Republican politicians have been bending over backwards trying to gin up any kind of justification for concerns about the election, anything to try to undercut faith in democracy and in our electoral system. In Arizona, a Republican operative, Karen Fann, who's the Senate president, was instrumental in getting a fourth audit of this election. And although they call it an audit, it's being undertaken by folks who have never audited anything before, and it doesn't follow any standard procedures or methodologies. It doesn't look anything like an audit should. The issues have been so manifest, they've been so obvious, they've been so constant, that the Secretary of State felt the need to go ahead and draft up this pre-buttal. Now, the Cyber Ninjas report isn't even out yet, but you shouldn't trust the results no matter what they say. So I'm just going to go ahead and read some highlights from this report here. Why don't you go ahead and give us a like and subscribe? That'd be nice. And yeah, let's read. So this thing is about 46 pages long, and if you're only going to read a couple pages, I recommend you look at the executive summary. This will give you the high points of their arguments. It'll show you what they did before this partisan sham began, and it'll show you the issues, at least generally speaking, that plagued the review itself. It notes several pre- and post-election tests are undertaken in order to ensure the integrity of an election. These include the required logic and accuracy tests of election equipment both before and after the election, as well as the post-election hand count audits, which were completed with no evidence of discrepancies or widespread fraud. Additionally, Maricopa County officials completed a separate forensic audit, which further confirmed that there was no systemic fraud. Arizona Senate President Karen Fann pursued further review of the election in Maricopa County. Despite frequent references to this review as an audit, the exercise undertaken by the Arizona Senate's Florida-based contractor, Cyber Ninjas, fails to meet industry standards for any credible audit, much less an election audit. The Senate's contractors demonstrated a lack of understanding of election processes and procedures, both at a state and county level. Just to really kick this horse, they break out some examples of the problems that they found. No security presence prevented entrance into the venue where they were conducting the count, or access to areas where ballots were being stored on the first day of the review. Ballot counters were seen with both black and blue pens. In a credible audit, black and blue pens are prohibited because this ink can be read by ballot tabulators and used to alter ballots. As a result, there's no way to confirm if the original ballots that were being reviewed were altered or destroyed. That's a bad sign. Any participant using a computer could access critical systems housing tally data and ballot images because each computer had a single login, shared passwords, and no multi-factor authentication. All right, that one's bad too. Like, this is way worse than I thought it was. Next, let's talk about transparency. This has not been a transparent process. And while there are folks saying these ballots were under 24/7 surveillance, it is manifestly not true. That is a lie. Media and outside observers were not allowed to watch proceedings initially. It was only after the result of litigation that they were allowed to observe. However, there were no observers allowed to watch the review of the voting systems. Voting system data is reported to have been sent to a company in Montana, with no indication of how the data was secured or what was being done with it by that subcontractor. So again, folks who say these things were under 24/7 surveillance, Secretary of State Hobbs says you lying, or you been lied to. And then they have a bunch of examples that they call lack of consistent policies, documented quality control practices, procedures, policies, processes, and procedures were not defined at the outset of the review. Regulatory processes were rarely followed. Observers noted discrepancies and were informed that policies or processes or procedures had been modified. There was no test plan or test procedure to review the voting system, and that's standard in a credible audit. The Senate's contractors changed procedures while the review was in process, sometimes in the middle of shifts, without updating documentation or training for those who were involved. Ballots were imaged using an unnamed software that observers found unreliable, and participants consistently made errors in data collection. So This should raise some questions for y'all. That's just the executive summary. So another big issue here is that the Senate's contractors sought to keep the press out of the venue where the recount was happening. And they sought to keep policies and procedures for conducting this process a secret. And look, the good thing about this report is it's got all sorts of footnotes in it. So look at this. This is footnote 61. We go down here where it says 61. It says McDonald Evoy. Supra Note 52. What that means is there's a source in this paper by a guy named McDonald Evoy. It's Supra, means up, and at Note 52. So this is Note 61. So let's scroll up to Note 52. Okay, this Note 52 says Dutta J at Jeremy Dutta. This is a tweet. This is not McDonald Evoy. You told me Supra Note 52. I'm at Supra Note 52. Secretary of State Hobbs. Where? Oh, look at this. McDonald Evoy at 53. Okay. For those who don't spend their time fussing over footnotes, let me explain what happened here. Somebody wrote this thing, and when they did, McDonald Evoy was at 52. And someplace between footnotes 1 and 51, another one was added, knocking McDonald Evoy to 53. But whoever did that didn't then go back and check to make sure that if McDonald Evoy was already referenced someplace, you fixed the short site there. Because now I guarantee you that the right-wing people who watch this channel are only going to focus on this footnote. It's the only thing they're going to see. God damn it. Democracy's on the line. We got to do better than this. Get your footnotes straight. Okay, anyway, if you want to find McDonald Evoy, it's at Note 53. Sorry, what was I doing? Oh yeah, saving democracy. So it's not a good sign when your auditor is trying to keep the process a secret. So the Secretary of State says that they appointed non-partisan experts to observe this process in action. The first thing that these observers note, again, is the transparency, the lack of processes, procedures, policies that were shared with folks. They say that these contractors looked like they were just coming up with stuff on the fly, developing things as they went, and didn't have a solid process in place. True transparency is the hallmark of an accurate audit, says the state report. Quote, although the contractors called much attention to the live stream of their efforts, in reality, the cameras did not cover all parts of the exercise, as contractors purported they would. Processes, procedures, and standards remained obscured from observers and often from participants. Another issue is, they were bringing in Wi-Fi technology to this place that shouldn't have had any Wi-Fi technology. The observers saw routers, they saw cameras that connected digitally over the internet. They have no way of knowing whether or not data was transferred using some of these Wi-Fi attachments. The contractors brought in Wi-Fi enabled microscope cameras and didn't tell anybody that they were Wi-Fi enabled, creating an incredible lapse of security. Cybersecurity is easy to get wrong, but they even got physical security issues wrong. Like when they had to clear out their venue to make room for a high school graduation because they took too long to count their ballots. Instead of putting tamper-resistant seals on these ballot boxes, the attorney for Cyber Ninjas thought it would just kind of be overkill. Observers saw on 2 occasions ballots just kind of be spilled all over the place without any effort to recount the ballots and ensure that none had been misplaced or lost. You want to count and ensure you have the right amount. You don't want to assume. And this report goes on and on and on. Observers were bullied, mistreated by the contractors and the people conducting the count. The count itself failed to have proper safeguards to ensure that disputes were resolved. The error rate for individual counters was unacceptably high, but the process by which ballots were reviewed seemed to change by the day. When there were too many errors, team leads would just kind of ask their team members to fix their mistakes, not recount, not ensure that there was the proper amount of ballots, but just to do their math again. The big takeaway here is this. Actual audits depend on transparency, reliability, repeatability. You got to be able to know what these folks are doing, to be able to know that their numbers are right, to be able to take the data for yourself and recreate it if you need to. That happened with the hand recount and the 2 forensic audits conducted by the county and by the Secretary of State. Ultimately, Maricopa County officials, the Secretary of State's office, the people who were responsible for managing and administering elections in a nonpartisan manner, said, yeah, this passed the mustard. Passed the mustard? Cuts the mustard? Cuts the cheese? This is good. This is good. Folks who believe these fraud claims, you've been had. Is it so hard to believe that a politician would lie to you? Is it so hard to believe that a billionaire maybe isn't the most honest person in the world? Is it so easy for you to believe that regular, working people, regular Americans, would go out of their way to subvert the most basic tenets of our democracy? Even if you feel that way, I promise you most of us don't. We're happy to lose and take it on the chin and be adults about it. We've been given something great. And I'm not just talking about America either. I'm talking about any place where there is some respect for freedom, some desire for equality, some sort of notion that we can make life better and maybe we should. It's not an automatic thing. It's important we get the truth out there. And I know a lot of people like to talk down to Trump supporters. I know a lot of people like to talk down to conservatives. I don't. I'm talking right at you. You've been had. I respect you enough to tell you that to your face. Do you respect yourself enough to really look at the facts? Well, that's it for me. I mean, you've been great. Hope to see you again. Until next time,
I ain't got time
keep
to
thinking.
get you now. I'm busy with this mule.